Finally, a dream come true. Mr. George Weah is now the president of Liberia. Many believe this is the dawn of a new era for the war-ravaged country with seemingly high expectations. Could President Weah struggle to meet them? What should we expect from him? What legacy is former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf leaving behind? To discuss these and more, I have with me National Chairman of the People's National Convention, Bernard Mornah, who will also share with us how the PNC is positioning itself to be relevant in the political landscape. You are watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akosia Kunedu Asante Samuels, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City. You're watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City. PNC Chairman is here. Bernard Mornah is our guest. Welcome to The Hard Truth, sir.
Thank you.
Wise, what are we celebrating?
Well, President Lehman, the only president of the Third Republic, died on 23rd January 1998. And so we are celebrating his passing into eternity. And the family says that it should be a touch of white. So in order to honor the wishes of the family, I decided to put on a little white.
Well, but it suits you well.
Good to see you.
Good. But
I think I watched your program for the first time when I went to bury Mom at the village.
Okay.
And somehow, perchance, I just came to the show and I saw that there was a young man from the NDC that you were interviewing, Sylvester Mensah.
Yep.
I enjoyed some bits of the interview, and least did I know that
You'll be here.
I'll be in the studio.
I know.
And
I'm
so
super excited
I'm
to have you.
that after watching the show for the first time, I am the next
You're
guest.
here. That's great. It only happens on The Hard Truth, right?
Yeah.
He's blushing. Right, but let's talk about this. Celebrated former soccer player George Weah has finally accomplished his dream of becoming president of Liberia. On Monday, we witnessed Liberia's first peaceful democratic transition of power, I think, for 74 years now, when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf handed over to George Weah. What does this mean for the country?
First, let me take the moment to express the best of wishes to President George Weah and to the people of Liberia. And let me also take the moment to congratulate the man who came harder in the campaigns with George Weah. I mean, the Vice President Bukai, and for his acceptance and concession that he indeed lost and that the People's Choice won. And above all, we need to commend the first female president of Africa, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, for having supervised such a historic elections in Liberia. Liberia has gone through a lot of difficulties from the days of Tubman all the way to the days of Charles Taylor. It's been a very difficult period for Liberia, with Charles Taylor taking the seat, until in Ghana when a peaceful transfer of power from Charles Taylor to Judy Bryant, who eventually succeeded Charles Taylor and led the country to the first ever elections. Of course, George Weah contested that election, came close. In fact, in the first round, he won against Ellen Sirleaf. And somehow, it was tipped that he was going to win that elections. He lost. He conceded. Amongst the many factors that made him not to win was the fact that he was not educated and that he was born in the ghettos. He did not have what it takes in terms of book knowledge. And so he left and went to school and went and started his first degree, as we are aware, and completed his first degree and went ahead to do his master's. And
in a very short time.
All this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I applaud George Weah on is that he published his results grade by grade, so that every exam he took, it was online. People could see his performance. He came for the second election, he did not win. And this time round, with the exit of Sirleaf, he came again, and in the first round, he topped the elections, and in the second round, he clinched the victory that he so much deserved. I think what his presidency will mean is that ordinary people, irrespective of background, social or economic, have capacity to rise to the top. This is a guy who grew up from shanty town, and from there he became the greatest.
So what if he ditched education and said, well, I have street knowledge? I mean, would that have been difficult for him to
Well, I don't know that any constitution in our world prescribe education as a qualification to occupying a political office. For instance, in the Ghana constitution, it only talks about your age, particularly to become a voter, you must be 18 years. To qualify to go to parliament in Ghana, you must be 21 years. And to qualify to become president, you must be 40 and above. And of course, the Constitution puts some nebulous other statements that you must be mentally sound. And I do not know how one determines, which court can determine mental soundness of a person. Because some of the people that actually become presidents, if you ask me my lay view, it will be that their mentality is unsound.
Like who?
Like a Trump. I think that some of his actions certainly begs the question of sanity.
I see, but so much was placed on former President Ellen Johnson, but she struggled for much of a 12-year term. What would be different from yes?
To be honest with you, George Weah has a daunting task leading a country that has suffered so much devastation. And if you listen to him yesterday when he spoke, he said corruption will not be talked about. It will be acted upon. And all of us know that corruption is one of the banes of our development as a continent. And all the time we talk about it, but little is done. So let's take it that George Weah will act as he promised. So it's no more going to be a talk show. It's going to be an action.
But Ellen says something like that too. So
well, if you know the background,
is it difficult? Is it difficult?
George Weah did not go through the established institutions of the IMF, the World Bank, and working for the UNDP and what have you, where you will say that because of their own corrupt tendencies, he has been influenced. This is a man who comes out of the street. He has seen how he suffered to grow. He knows poverty by living it, not by the $1 per day standard that is established by the Bretton Woods institutions. This is a man who has lived it. And when we say $1 or $2 per day is the threshold of poverty, you really don't understand poverty. Poverty is when you get up in the day and you cannot find food to eat and you go and hunt for lizards. Okay? And to go and then skin the lizards
but
to
I'm
make
asking,
a meal.
Is it difficult for you to be in a certain position when you get up there? So you're talking about being in a slum, but when you actually get there to the position where you can actually make the difference, it's like it's difficult to implement.
Courage. Look, I have seen presidents, and I admire President Paul Kagame, I admire President Magufuli of Tanzania, because they push it. And they will tell you, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And you can see that the commitment of the leader is yielding results. You can't go to Tanzania and do the kind of... Look, the people of Tanzania have problems with Magufuli, but when it comes to the issue of corruption, the issues of profligate spending by government officials, you see that it's been cut drastically in Tanzania. If you go to Kigali, I have seen Paul Kagame drive in his own car, jump into a restaurant, eat food and pay, and walk out of the same restaurant. How many of our presidents have the capacity to do that or have the confidence to do that? And I think that George Weah will bring practicality to presidency. That is my personal view, and I hope that he does not disappoint the many young people who joined with him in this campaign, having hope that, look, we grew up together, and even outside of growing up together, when he became a rich person through his soccer, he still recognized where he came from and participated in the activities of the ordinary people. And I think that that is what makes George Weah the most popular person in Liberia for the past 18 years. Despite that, the elections before he did not win, I have always said that, look, he won, but something went under
went fishy.
Yeah.
But you know, yes, President Weah inherited a broke economy, characterized by high level of unemployment and domestic debt, depreciation of currency and endemic corruption. The majority of President Weah supporters are living, you know, in squatters, and you know, they want their lives to be transformed. In fact, people believe that it's going to be like a magic wand, that, you know, your lives will be changed. Will it be easy to actually achieve all of this?
President Weah said that in his inaugural speech, that the task ahead will be daunting. It will require some sacrifices. It will require certain bold but unpalatable decisions. There must be a change in the way governance is done. And for me, as an Africanist, I hold the view that no individual African country is capable of scaling the hurdles that have been put in by Western institutions on us, either directly or through some other multilateral groups that they have put in place. And so therefore, we as presidency should also be looking at the greater continental union. For instance, if you go to Liberia and you are talking about their currency, how many countries will spend Liberian currency in Africa? In Ghana, how many countries beyond Ghana spend Ghana cedi? In Nigeria, how many countries beyond Nigeria spend the naira? But anywhere you go, you find a dollar, because it is a continental currency. Anywhere you go, you find a euro, and it's a continental currency. I say this because, look, Germany had its currency, Italy has its currency, Brussels had its currency, or Belgium, and all these individuals, look, they had their own individual currencies. But in order to ensure currency supremacy, they decided to collapse their individual countries' interests and to form the European Union, out of which today we have the euro. So therefore, for our continent currency to achieve some semblance of stability or even greater stability, we need a continental currency. That if I take whatever currency we use, maybe the Afri, I can go to Liberia and spend Afri. I can go to Tanzania and spend Afri. I can go to Zimbabwe and spend Afri. Anywhere in the world, I should be able to spend Afri, and that currency will be strong. Ghana currency cannot survive the attack from other foreign currencies. And so will the Liberian economy see depreciation. The other fact of depreciation of our currency is that, look, our terms of trade is very, very weak and bankrupt. We export less, and even in the export, we export in terms of volumes. We export greater volumes. But in value, we receive less. The Western world exports less in volume, but in value, they receive more, because their exports are finite. Ours are raw. And even when our exports have to go to those countries, they will determine whether they meet their standards or not. What is the African standard? Broni Wawu, or what we call bend down boutique. Everything second hand, apart from the toilet paper.
Yeah, so you are talking about...
So in terms of Liberia, one of their staples, for instance, is rice. If you have ever been to Liberia, you see that they have the land capable of producing rice. So George Weah should look at how the Liberian economy will be able to produce first to feed itself and not depend on imports. And once you become food self-sufficiency, you would have cut your import bill by half. And by cutting your import bill, you would have been able to stabilize your currency, because a lot of foreign or hard currency is used to import. So now that you are producing locally, you will not import any longer. And therefore, you would be able to conserve a lot of energy. It will go ahead to improve your balance of payment and ensure that, look, people's income, whatever you give them little, they'll be able to consume from the local industry and therefore boost employment within the economy. So George Weah needs a collection or an assemblage of ideas that will ensure that they are able to lift the domestic economy on its own and not wait for somebody to come somewhere and come and tell you that foreign direct investment. We can have domestic direct investment in Africa.
But what would be we talked about making some painful and hard choices. You just said that now. But what would be the toughest challenge for him? Or what do you see as
It is the attitudes of our Africans, and for instance, the people of Liberia. And they like the feel-good attitude. All of us want to have the feel-good attitude without knowing that every feel-good attitude must be initiated by a hard work. It is that thing which I call attitude that must be worked on. And we need people to assist George. We have to be able to communicate what first his real goal is for the entire Liberian people, so that the people of Liberia can buy into his goal. If the people of Liberia are not able to buy into what his presidency means, then he has a challenge. So he needs a national crusade so that people will get to know that, look, these tough measures that we are taking are yet towards a certain end, and that these sacrifices are required today so that our tomorrow will become better. So there is the greater difficulty in changing people's attitude, but which must be done so that the people of Liberia will throw away their dependency attitude and mentality to ensure that they are able to come home and produce by themselves and for themselves.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City. Bernard Mornah, PNC chairman, is here. Now, Ria's direction in office will be dictated by his first major decision in office, including picking his cabinet members. And Malt Lewishit, a senior African analyst, I think he's based in the UK, he said that despite promising to pick a team based on their expertise, given the need to reward establishment figures who support him, political horse trading, he said, may take precedence in US cabinet selection. Is that how you see it?
Well, there are two possibilities. One is that we went into the second round with a coalition, and therefore he will need to satisfy coalition partners in their appointments or put the distribution of jobs to be done. And I'm sure that some of these things are documented before the coalition could be put together. They had to treat before some people will accept to come and join him, particularly in the runoff. And therefore he has to, first and foremost, to show commitment that, look, the promises or memorandum that we signed before you joined as partners in the runoff, we are going to manifest the outcomes. And therefore, he has to satisfy coalition partners. Some appointments will go to the three key persons or parties that supported him in the runoff. Beyond that, there are what I call the covert, not the overt, the covert support that comes. And you know, elections are not just for jokers. It involves a lot of cash. Those who doled out resources would want to sometimes even dictate for you who you should appoint into certain positions. Because when they get their favorites into certain positions, they are convinced that they have the opportunity to continue to make their money. Okay? And therefore, they will also be pushing behind the scenes to get certain political offices.
So can they work behind the scenes? You don't have to necessarily be members of government.
Let me tell you some plain language. I was privileged one time to have gone to then candidate Mills' office when we were doing the CJA. And when I got there, because I was sent to go and talk to him on a certain matter to come and join in a demonstration. And when I got there, he came out and said, oh, they should let me in. There was somebody who wanted to see him. He said the person should come in. I wouldn't mention the person's name.
Why is that?
And the person was
who is this person?
No, let me make the point. And the person was like, look, we'll get you all the money you need for your campaign. on condition that you give us certain appointments. We proposed certain appointments, and one was Foreign Affairs, one was Interior, and one was Finance. And I recall with excitement, or with surprise, let me put it that he pulled out a mini constitution from his desk and put it on the table and said, look, this document is my holy guide. And he says, I'll be president and I'll be responsible. I will be swearing the oath. So if I swear oath and I take what you have asked me to do, it means I'm not sincere to the document. I was surprised, but I was also excited because this is a man who stood up against those who want to bankroll in order to get certain appointments.
Right.
And he said, no, I will stand by the Constitution. I am not able to tell whether that person was able to bankroll or to support the campaign any further beyond what I heard. The prophecy.
But was that person given that position?
No, the person didn't want that position.
But
he
whoever,
wanted certain
right.
officers that he could make.
But did you see them there?
I don't know, because he didn't mention the persons that he wanted to.
See.
But he just said, look, we'll take Foreign Affairs, we'll take Interior, and we'll take Finance. And the president, then candidate, said, no, I'm going to be guided by the Constitution. I am not in the position to talk about George Weah's capacity to reject such. Or maybe he accepted them because at the spur of moment, when you needed resources to go out there to go and do the campaign, and your campaign was suffering because you have an incumbent vice president who has state largesse at his disposal to be able to run a campaign, has fleet of cars, because the vice president cannot be going for a campaign. You tell him to park the official vehicles. But you have to fuel your own vehicles as an opposition person, and you know all the things that goes with campaigning. So if George Weah compromised along the line in terms of who will finance him and what the person will be looking for after the campaigns or after he had won the elections, then there is going to be that trading. That now that you have won the elections, please don't forget the deal that we entered into before now. And so he will be having those other difficulties. The other challenge he will have, which is a real challenge, is to meet the expectations of the ordinary people who think that, look, Weah came out of us. And so if he has risen to the top, we too have the capacity to reach to the top. So give us appointments so we can show to the world that it is not only classroom or book knowledge that can lead a people. And therefore, they want to see persons with fiscal challenges that will be appointed. They want to see people who are practical sportsmen and not theory sportsmen who will be appointed to run the show of sports in Liberia and what have you. And so all these things will put some level of pressure on the president.
Problems, touted, his predecessors' progress against corruption. That is a political system based on coercion and bribery. In her own words, former President Sirleaf admitted that in an interview with Foreign Policy, that she had underestimated the culture and roots of corruption in Liberia. Doesn't this provide an insight into the scale of the problem, and this is what President Weah can win or can't take it?
Rent-seeking is an economic term which refers to a situation where people do things in order that they gain greater confidence. You also have insider trading and many other ways of stealing the system. In Africa, what we have done is that those in public service are made to be poor, and those in private sector are made to be rich. I give you maybe one or two examples. You are a quantity surveyor. You are director for quantities at the Ministry of Roads and Highways. And you sit down and prepare quantities for roads to be done, right? You know that in the market when you go, this is how much you buy material, this is how much it will cost for labor to be able to construct a road. But because government is letting out these contracts to private companies, there is a certain markup or margin on it. And you put it there. And somebody that you have much knowledge and education than is a contractor and comes to take the job. Go and make money and come and give you a small percentage of it. And so you see the private man who takes government contracts becoming richer and super richer to the neglect of those who are working in the public service, who are actually the conduit through which the jobs are given. So go to the ministry as we speak today, and I can tell you that almost everybody, including the typists, are contractors. Do you understand what I'm saying? They are contractors because they form companies. And so they award the jobs to themselves.
Yeah.
And it is our own creation because we have bastardized state companies. Like the State Construction Company, you don't hear about it any longer, State Construction Corporation. The State Housing Corporation is no more there. And so if we even have to put up state housing, look, Job 600, even today, is one of the nicest edifices you can find within our system, where our parliamentarians are housed. Not so. If you go to Job 600, it was constructed by the state, not by private sector. Today, all those jobs are given out. And so people sit at the ministries and you think that they will just be pushing pen and paper.
It goes to them.
So you breed corruption by the kind of system you run. And so in Liberia, if they want to check corruption, they must look at the system and say, look, working in the public sector does not mean that you should become poor. And that state institutions have capacity to deal with road construction. What is the work of the highways or the what we call the public works departments? They are no more functioning. And therefore, you expect that there will be high corruption because we have tended to overhype the contribution of the private sector as against the role that the public sector should play. And that is one of the banes of our development. And so I think that we should look at it. Let me give you another instance. Have you gone to any of our regional ministers or what we call the residencies?
Yeah.
Do you see how big it is? And you go to a residency and you see a huge building and they make you a regional minister, say to the Brown and Half region.
I'm from there.
Fantastic. My prediction is right. And you are made a regional minister. And all of a sudden, you were living in a 2-bedroom compound house. And because you have been made a regional minister, they go and give you that edifice. You move your children, your wife into that place. And they know that in the next 4 or 5 years, your party may lose power. Or even before your party loses power, the president can de-appoint you. What do you think will happen? Because we are told that standards are either maintained or improved. Not so. So you have moved into a certain level of life. You can't go back and stay in your compound house. So whatever it takes, even from your wife or from your husband, to put pressure on you to say, look, from this place, I'm not going back to that Nakopulumaja. There will be pressure on you to do something beyond what your income can do. And that is corruption. So it is the kind of environment that we have provided that at the end of the day, you know, political office is transient. At any moment when something bad happens, you can go out there and make a statement that is inappropriate and politically incorrect, and that will be your nemesis. You know that. So at any point in time, a political office holder is at risk of losing your office. So the moment they go there, they want to take advantage to to live a life equal to what they are living presently. And that also breeds corruption. So it is a daunting task. That's why I'm saying that we need an attitudinal change of our people. And that will be a difficult thing to do in Liberia. And that is difficult to do in many African countries. And so Sirleaf is not wrong when she says that she underestimated the potency and vibrancy of endemic corruption in Liberia.
Right,
and when she took over, she came face to face with the reality, and it possibly was difficult. I hope George Weah will close his eyes on some of the things and deal with them the way they have to be dealt with.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and our industrial city. Bernard Mornah is here. Now, Bernard, let's talk about your party, the PNC. Let me ask you bluntly, is the PNC alive?
This is the hard truth.
Yes.
We are in coma. And hoping to be resuscitated. And I am in full confidence that we will get the oxygen.
Yes, I remember you saying that last year, I think on Class FM, that, you said, my honest truth is that we appear to be in coma, yes, and we are not breathing very well, and we need some dramatic and radical changes to wake up from our coma. You went on to say that you, as the national chairman of the party, it's very difficult for you to run the party that is seen to be divided on personality and some principles that were not so much in line with your ideas. Has much changed since you made those comments?
I think there are a number of people, and let me call them well-wishers. Somebody like Reverend Samuel Ajay Debra, somebody like Sir Dr. Edward Jadere, and many other people, including our ex-MPs, after listening to the interview we just referred to, had to call me to have some discussions with me. And I had frank discussions with them on the difficulties that we are having. And these difficulties were actually brought in the wake of the constitutional amendment that took place prior to our Congress in WA, and of course sanctioned by the Congress, where leadership was vested in the presidential candidate. And as soon as the elections are over, the presidential candidate continue to be the leader of the party. And therefore, when you say he's the leader of the party, it means that every action in the party must have his endorsement and blessings. Indeed, he should give direction on how the party is run. That is what it means to be a leader. Now, we have a leader of our party, since this is the hard truth, who, in my view, compromised all of us in election 2016.
You mean Edward Mahama?
Yes. Because I can't imagine that you are even made a vice presidential candidate and you don't go to Ghana Hafo to introduce yourself to your own people. Charity, they say, begins at home. But we had a presidential candidate who did not find it appropriate to lead his party to the Nairi, for instance, in Alergu. We never stepped foot, and I made several attempts to say, look, as chairman, I took you not only to the Upper West region, but I took you to Sankana. So as to introduce, and the chiefs were in council, because we had to plan with the chiefs. So whilst they were in council, we went to meet with them. So I could introduce that, look, as chairman, I have a presidential candidate, and I was seeking the blessings of our people. And so we left. We went to the Upper East, and that was all. Northern region, where our presidential candidate comes from. We never visited Northern region. Not once. We did not visit his hometown. We could not put even a candidate in his home constituency. And anytime you talked about, you wanted us to go to his hometown, I tell no, he needed to go there first as a person and then come and lead the party to go there. We are still waiting so that he'll go and we'll then follow.
But
elections have been over.
Right.
And it is important to take our minds off election 2016 and to move forward. But you see, when the leader of your party is now an ambassador, and he's supposed to be giving diplomatic advice to the president.
What's wrong with that?
He's supposed to be seeking the success of the president and his party. And at the same time, seeking the success of the president and the president's party. You want to see the success of your own political party.
You don't agree to his appointment?
Let me put it this way. There is a rival show, maybe called the Hard Talk. You accept to be a host of the Hard Talk, or to play a part in building the Hard Talk so it will become successful. And you come and you are also the promoter and host of the Hard Truth. How do you reconcile?
But if the Hard Talk is not running on air and the Hard Truth is, why not gain
I'm
some
saying that
experience
they are that's a
then,
rival. So it means that they are the same. They eat from the same pot. Because the MPP is going to eat from the same electorate that the PNC will eat from. And so if the MPP continue...
Bluntly, will the PNC ever, I mean, it's just like a laughing stock when the Electoral Commission announces NPP 1,200, NDC 500, PNC 2. Why?
Was it not said that President Otumfuo could never be president of Ghana? Don't tell me you didn't hear. Otherwise, you will not be telling the truth on your own show.
I'm listening.
President Otumfuo was said that he was not destined to be president, and that he was born in 1949 or so, and that all the time he gets 49 point something and comes down. He will never scale through. He won elections.
So it's possible. PNC, it's possible to
President
have a president from there.
Laurent Gbagbo of Ivory Coast used to have less than 1% of the Ivorian votes. But when destiny tilted in his favor, he won elections.
But
President Michael Sata.
Right, you can give several examples. But Mornah, it would seem that, you expect the party to grow beyond individuals. But the hard truth is that the PNC seem to be mostly centered by Dr. Nasiru Mahama. This will be a tough nut to crack.
And that's exactly the point I'm making. That look, let us take away. Look, President Liman founded this party. He left the party in 1996, did not contest for the presidential elections because he wanted the party to survive without him. So 1996, we had a new presidential candidate. Somehow, Liman did not live even up to the year 2000. He died in 1998, a day that we are to commemorate in a few days. So it's obvious, or a few hours, it's obvious that he foresaw that the party should survive beyond him. Today, look, there are people when you want to say, look, what Edward Mahama is doing is crippling the party. They say, no, don't say that because he's been there from 1996. I said, yes. But if from 1996 things are not right, and we want to repeat it, and all of us want to say that, look, let's be praise singers, then we are in trouble.
Right, but
let me give you instances. On election day 2016, second vice chairman Henry Asante signs accreditation for the leader and gives it to MPP agents who stood at polling stations as agents. So you go there and then they'll show you their accreditation, and it is PNC, and yet in fiscal and in thought, they are of the MPP. And you cannot tell me somebody will sign something
have proof for?
Oh, yes. You cannot tell me that somebody signed this for you without telling you.
But okay, moving on. Let's look at Atiq Mohammed's, question. Do you recognize him as a general secretary of the party?
Because you say that Atiq does not respect Edward Mahama and that he is not performing his duties. And you have not referred him to any disciplinary committee. You have not written to him to alert him to his responsibilities that he has failed to perform. When we call a NEC meeting to find out why you accepted the position of ambassador at large, you somersault and say that, look, you did not become president because Atiq Mohammed did not contribute his part.
Yeah, I remember because I think somewhere last year, you when it came out that Atiq was suspended, you said it was unlawful, and that you...
I have said this. Let me conclude on this part. I have said that The meeting that suspended Atik did not give me the outcome of the meeting as the chairman. So I don't know. So when you come and tell me Atik was suspended, I tell you he's not suspended. He's my general secretary. At any meeting, whoever chairs that meeting, the meeting has outcomes, not so. You communicate the outcome to the leadership. I am the chairman of the party. Nobody wrote anything to me to tell me that at the end of this meeting, this was what transpired. And that act on it.
Is a PNC a serious party if you can't even put your own house in order? How can you govern all of us?
Because the personality challenge is in place. Can you imagine that one of the accusations against me is that I am forcing for us to unite with the Progressive People's Party, the Convention People's Party, because Papa Ikwesindum has promised me running mate.
That won't be a bad idea.
And therefore, members of my party, including our leader, are calling people from around the regions to tell them that the motive for me fighting for the Nkrumahs to unite is that I'm going to become a running mate. And when these things are put out there, the intention is to demoralize you or to take you from bringing everybody together. I can say one thing. I am never afraid of competition. But there are people in our midst who think that when we come together, they do not have the wherewithal to be able to compete to earn any position. And so they want us to have our little corner so that they can become general secretaries.
In having your little corner, in staying your little corner, some believe that you've been silenced by the National Executive Committee. Is that the case?
I've always spoken my mind, even though I don't speak largely for the PNC on matters that are sensitive. I speak my mind. And even when I speak my individual view, you see that that group, that cartel, will organize one or two people to go and issue a statement and say that the PNC does not support what I'm saying. And I keep laughing. I never issued a statement to, for instance, call for the expulsion of the Israeli ambassador from Ghana after making disparaging remarks on the vote that we made at the UN on the Jerusalem
you did that
issue.
alone.
You understand?
Yeah.
I didn't issue a statement. I was called and I spoke my mind. Why would people go and sit down and draft a statement to distance the party from the statement I have made? I have not said so. Why would people, for instance, after Donald Trump's shithole pronouncement, now President Akufo-Addo says that we will not take lessons and people are keeping quiet. They should write a statement saying that the President of Ghana does not represent our interests. So you can understand what I'm talking about. And so deliberately, when I go on programs, I speak as Bernard Mornah. I cannot stop the media from captioning the way they want to caption it. But for me, I'll continue to speak my mind.
I see. But as national chairman of the party, what vision do you have for the PNC? And
I
what
look at the PNC that will grow beyond personality.
Achieving?
And that is why maybe we are having these internal difficulties. For instance, in the MPP, as I keep insisting, all those who are appointed by President Nana Akufo-Addo and they are holding party executive position have been asked to relinquish those positions in order to concentrate on the art of doing government work. Not so. Otiko Jaba and the examples are there. That they had to step away in order to allow party to function independent from government. Because it can give some compromises. Because if you are a women's organizer, for instance, and you are the Minister for Gender and Social Protection, you go to regions, they will not see you as the minister, they will see you as the women's organizer. So now when Edward Mama goes to places, do we see him as ambassador or we see him as the leader of the PNC?
On your personal website, you write, you said that you believe in the vision and character and ideologies of Nkrumah, and they are still relevant and you will continue to be beneficial to many generations to come. Now, Nkrumah was a Pan-Africanist and you seem to exhibit the tendencies of Pan-Africanism. Does your party still hold, that Nkrumah-ism, values dear to them?
Let me state unequivocally that the PNC is an Nkrumahist political party. And that after the CPP was banned in 1966, the only time that the Nkrumahs came together, indeed Moro Igala provided the leadership. He became the galvanizing or the fulcrum around which all the Nkrumahs mobilized. Somehow he was disqualified from participating in the 1979 general elections. And he brought in Dr. Hilary Mann, who later became president in 1979 and was sworn in September. And therefore, it meant that all the Nkrumahs came together from CPP to PNP. And therefore, we cannot run away from the fact that we are the tradition of Nkrumah, Igala, and Liman. That is our tradition. And we have to hold steadfast to this tradition in order to ensure that we constitute the alternative that the people of Ghana are looking for. In any case, everything about Nkrumah till date remain relevant. Look, planning your country and its development is more relevant today than it was even at the time of Nkrumah. Can you look at the kind of layouts that Nkrumah put? Go to the Kanda housing area. And after what Nkrumah did, go to the other side and see, without the planning, how that area looks like. Go to Tema and see the layout and the industrial expand that Nkrumah put up. Today, without the kind of plan, tell me how our cities are becoming. They are becoming more than slums.
Right, but
tell me that the kind of vision
Bernard,
of ensuring that we're becoming...
satisfied? I think I get, but are you satisfied with the level of support you get from your fellow executives in carrying out your vision?
It is my responsibility to be able to mobilize, even if we oppose each other, to ensure that we are guided and guarded on the same path. And so I'll do my utmost to ensure that we don't need to be friends in order to steer the affairs of our party towards the vision that we are all looking for. And so I may not be friends with all of them. And I keep saying that it is not all the time that, for instance, the teeth is a friend to the tongue. And sometimes when you see the teeth can run rough on the tongue, not so, and it's so painful, do you remove the teeth or you take away the tongue? They both live in the mouth. And so you have to find a way to coexist in spite of the fact that we have differences. And so as a leader, I appreciate that we may not all wear the same thinking cap, but we have the same destination that we want to get to. And I have to ensure that we pull each other along so that we can get to that destination.
But Bernard, what seems, so I just can't get this. What seemed to be your most pressing challenge in your attempt to make the PNC more competitive party in the country?
Our politics have become monetized.
You mean within your party?
Everywhere. Our politics generally, not just PNC politics, have become so monetized. I just can't imagine that you go and call people to organize, and you go and talk and just get up and go. It's not going to work. Look, the people who organize, they will sit down somewhere. So they go and rent plastic chairs, for instance, and you go and you say you will not at least support them to defray that debt. The people will drink some sachet water. Some of them may have to commute by whatever means to the venue. So if you do not know how to mobilize to be able to sustain these interests, when they come and they have drained their resources to come for a meeting and to go back, the next time and you ask somebody to come for a meeting, the wife or the child or the husband will say, you are not going anywhere. You can't take family money and go for a meeting and then leave us hungry or without school fees. So it is the monetized.
Right, but if there is someone, a financier, someone, or there is so much money in the party, you'll be competitive or as competitive as these other big parties.
Party politics have become euphoric. I organize my rally and I'm talking and my sound system is not the best of quality. And all of a sudden, Nana Akufo-Addo is passing and the sound system is na 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 na, oh yeah, we know. He's born to succeed and every place is doing zoom, zoom, zoom. Or your Mahama is passing and they are playing Mahama paper and it consumes. You think that the people will still stand with me? If I tend to spit and I don't take time, everybody will run to go and see Nana is a winner or Mahama paper.
So you need money.
So resources are needed in order to even go there and sell your message. So if you do not have the capacity to mobilize and to sell yourself to people to believe in you, to want to contribute. Look, the businessmen...
So why are we getting, where and how are we getting the money, the resource?
That is why it's been difficult. Look, and I keep saying that the NDC might have benefited from state largesse because they came into power through the crude way. The MPP have been able to sustain themselves because their political antecedents sold state assets and created businessmen. You cannot say that of the Nkrumah regime, that they sold any state asset. Indeed, they created the state assets that were sold. You cannot say that of President Hilal Leman, who, despite the institutionalization of kangaroo courts to try him and his ministers, none of his appointees was found guilty, even under the military kangaroo courts.
I see.
So obviously, we did not create the kind of businessmen that will continue to supply the fuel and oxygen to sustain a political party. They concentrated on building a Ghana for all of us. Unfortunately, the NDC and MPP concentrated on building a section for themselves, and the section became the bankrollers of their political parties.
Bernard, how do you feel when you hear people say that Mornah is, only a member of PNC in name, but in reality, religiously, is serving the interests of the NDC?
I feel they are ignorant of how I started my politics, because I founded the tertiary institutions functionaries of the PNC. I moved to become the youth organizer of the party. I became the first elected general secretary of the party for 2 terms. And of course, I became the national chairman of the party. Beyond just this political rise is the fact that I have participated in several activism, not only in Ghana, but also in some other African countries, Kenya, Zambia, and many other places that my political activism has taken me. And it is obvious that if it was about finding the easy way to political rise, I could easily fall to the trappings of the NDC or the MPP. Till this day, there are many who still think that, look, Bernard Mornah, vacate your party and ascend. And I have an uncle who is an MPP who, for the past 16 years, has always been on my case. Bernard, leave your party and go and join the NDC or the MPP. And I tell him that, look, this is what I'm destined to build, and I continue to build it. The fact that I do not speak language that is palatable to some persons in some political parties can give them whatever impressions they want to hold. I am an avowed socialist, a socialist, of course, with taste. And if the MPP is not a socialist political party, in terms of policy orientation, you can understand clearly that it is difficult for me to align with the policy prescriptions of the MPP, who believes in individualism as opposed to the collectivism. If the NDC says they are a social democratic force, and therefore a majority of their policies are tailored towards socialism, then you can understand that in terms of ideological spewing, there may be convergence of thoughts with that school. And so if you are not politically alive to appreciate my orientations and beginnings, and you make these conclusions, I have no difficulty. I have mentored many members of the MPP.
So you are not an NDC member?
I have mentored many members of the MPP. Some of them are acting general secretaries today. I've mentored many members of the NDC who became communication directors and ministers in many other portfolios. And so it meant that I could actually become one of those appointees if possibly I had navigated and moved to the NDC or the MPP. But I've stayed put. So if I continue to be in the PNC and you describe me in any terms, I cannot hold you back. As I insist, opinions are like noses.
You're entitled to yours.
Konadu, you have your nose, and I have mine.
I see. I like yours too. But some people, again, finally, some people feel that the PNC should just fold up and disband. Will the PNC ever, Bernard, be great again?
I have heard many people say we should fold up, and I tell them, if you want to leave, leave. But we will continue to run the PNC. Or let me be specific. I will continue to run the PNC. And when everybody leaves the house of the PNC and I'm the only one left, maybe I'll close the door.
Thank you so much, Bernard, for talking to the hard truth. Bernard Mornah is the PNC chairman, or is the chairman of the PNC, and he's been our guest today. Thank you so much, sir, for coming, even watching the hard truth. What do you think of the PNC? Should they fold up? Should they, join other political or the small political parties? Send your comments and views to our social media pages on your screen right now. My name is Nana Akosia Kunedu Asante Samuels. Catch a repeat of the program is tomorrow morning at 9 to 10 a.m. We are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial Cities. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Bye.